I'm Karina Aveyard, the director of the University of East Anglia's 2023 Green Film Festival, and I'm delighted to be here with Christi Cooper to introduce her brilliant film, Youth V Gov, which you're all here tonight to see as part of this year's festival programme. Christi is a multi-award-winning filmmaker, and she is the director, writer, and producer of Youth V Gov, a film that has screened in over 55 festivals and won 26 jury and audience awards. It is a fantastic film. So Youth V Gov, as you will find out, tells a story of the constitutional climate change case, Juliana versus United States, which was brought by 21 young people against the US government for violating their Fifth Amendment rights to life, liberty, property, and public trust resources. Specifically in this case, the young plaintiffs asserted that the US government had willfully and knowingly contributed to creating climate crisis by ignoring and suppressing research about the impact of mining and the use of oil and other fossil fuels that goes back, shockingly, to at least the 1950s. So welcome, Christi. Could you please tell us a little bit about how this film project came together, how you met the young people who are represented in this film and their legal team, and how the project came about?
Sure. Thanks. First of all, thanks so much for screening our film as part of your festival. And hi, everyone. I'm sorry that I can't be there in person, but really excited that you're watching this film and engaging on this topic. I was introduced to this story. It's kind of a long process for me. It's been a long part of my life. In 2011, I started working together with Our Children's Trust, which you'll see in this film is Julia's organization. I came in via a partnership that I was doing with Witness, which is Peter Gabriel's social justice and human rights organization based out of New York. We did a series of 10 short films that were featuring state plaintiffs, so young people that were suing their state governments at the time. And that was my introduction to Shatez Scott, Kelsey, and Jamie Lynn Butler, who you'll see in the film. And I was, at that time, I was learning about climate litigation. It was my first time filming with minors, which is definitely a different skill set, I guess. A lot of other ethical things to be considering, and also working with plaintiffs in a lawsuit, which presents all kinds of other challenges. And I stayed in touch with these folks. And so when they formed this new lawsuit in 2015, I was actively watching it, and I was, had made friendships with some of these families and the plaintiffs. And when they had their first win in the early spring of 2016, that was when I jumped on it, because I knew that it was going somewhere, and I was kind of waiting to see what the courts were going to do. So I reached out to Julia and asked if she would give me exclusive access to tell this story, and I began developing relationships with the plaintiffs and their families, and that was kind of the start of it. So this was really a longer process. This film specifically took me 6 years to make, but the relationships and the research and the things that I was learning about this topic go back much further.
Yeah, that really is so evident in the way you bring it all together. That is incredibly rich in terms of information, but so clear in the way that you've presented it, and so quite effortless in a way to be able to follow the story, if you like.
It's hard to tell a story about a lawsuit. And make it entertaining, and and part of my goal was to also educate people about the legal system and what does it mean to file a lawsuit against the government. So yeah, this wasn't an easy task.
No, for sure. Could you talk a little bit, as I mentioned, what the film makes very clear is that there is decades of research and knowledge about the impact of oil and fossil fuels and their impact on the climate. And that has been known by companies and by governments for a long time. And I was interested to know, in the sort of 55 festivals and other screenings where this film has been shown, how you've found audiences have responded to this evidence, and in particular, the questions it raises about people's faith and trust in public institutions?
Yeah, and it's a great question. And I would also add to that it's, the plaintiff's claim and their evidence, it's not just about the suppression of the science. It's also about the support, the permitting, the infrastructure, everything that the government has done to lock us into a fossil fuel-based energy system. So it's, it wasn't just about the denial or the suppression, but it was about the active propagation and support and all of our taxpayer money that's going towards subsidizing the fossil fuel industry. And I think when people, we have been programmed for so long, in part by the fossil fuel industry, to believe that it is up to us as the consumer to right the ship when it comes to climate change, that it's our responsibility to ride our bikes, to walk, to recycle. I mean, the whole recycling symbol that we have was a marketing tool developed by the fossil fuel industry to make us better, to make us feel better about using plastics, right? So for so long as an audience, especially people that care anything about the environment or are aware of climate change, we've been told that it's our responsibility to somehow shift that. And I think what audiences are finding with this film is that, this story is really about the systemic problems at the heart of how we got here and what we need to do to remedy the situation. So this is really about these governmental decisions, these big picture decisions that have very little to do with us as consumers, what we can do individually to right this wrong. And I think especially young people today, I think they really have lost a lot of faith in our institutions and in our government. They do not feel represented. They're seeing how for decades, their parents, their grandparents, leaders who were supposed to be making decisions on our behalf, young people today are seeing that these decisions are not in favor of their future. They're not making decisions that are protecting their future, their children's future. So I think there is, definitely the trust has been degraded for good reason. And I think that's also why these young people are so empowered and understand that they have these constitutional rights and they are being violated, and they will go away if we don't fight to keep them.
It's a very important and very inspirational story. And very well put there. I think the systemic nature of what we're dealing with, this is beyond individual lifestyle choices now in order to affect the kind of change that's needed.
And it's also, while the corporations are guilty and while the fossil fuel industry is guilty, absolutely, and they should be held accountable to cleaning up the mess that they've created. And they've made billions and billions of money off of us and off of destroying the environment. But at the end of the day, it's our governments. It's the US government, it's the UK government, it's the European governments, it's the governments around the world that are allowing this to happen, that are making these decisions, that are receiving money from the fossil fuel lobbyists. This is a problem with our representatives and our government and our leaders who are supposed to be representing us rather than serving the best interests of these corporations. So I think that's also another unique thing about this film, is that this is not about trying to stop a single pipeline or bring down a fossil fuel industry. This is about the government and the decisions that the government has made.
Yeah, that's great. And finally, just to finish, what part of its film and its message do you think are most important?
Well, I think some of the things that we just have been discussing are really important in understanding that this is a systemic issue. And I think for the screenings that we've been doing over the past year and a half, what's really been evident is that the information that people gain through this film is power. It's a tool, and educating people about their rights and how to protect those rights is power. And so this is a message that I would really love the audience to take to heart, that you know, we can't give up, and we also can't resign ourselves to trusting that our elected officials are going to be taking care of this. And that's why our judicial systems are so important. In the US, I'm not sure if the UK has a similar structure, but in the US, our judicial system is our third branch of government. They have equal power within our democracy, and they are supposed to be holding the other two branches of government accountable. And I think often we forget about the importance of the courts in many issues. You know, we think that if we go out and vote, which of course is important, we think that if, you know, our executive branch and who we elect is going to make the appropriate decisions. But at the end of the day, we also have our judicial system that is in place there to especially protect us from harm by our government. And I guess one other message is that listen to the young people. They need a seat at the table. They know what they're talking about. For too long, we've been dismissive of young people and their voice and their knowledge that they bring to the table. They have the most to lose. They are being disproportionately affected, and they absolutely should have a voice in this. And I have learned so much from this younger generation. They have taught me so much about the intergenerational and intersectional justice elements of climate change, and they are really our hope. And I don't mean that in the sense that we should leave it all up to them, but we should be learning from them, and we should be supporting them and backing them up.
That's lovely. Thank you so much. That's a lovely way to finish. Thank you so much for recording this introduction with me. It's so lovely talking to you. And now we're really looking forward to watching your film.
Great. Have fun, everyone. Thanks so much for having us.